Diamonds in the rough. NFL Draft Diamonds. Time to shine.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Williams with NFL Draft Diamonds, and we are presented by the Hula Bowl. Today I have with me one of these Ivy League guys. His name is Henry Byrd. He's offensive lineman out of Princeton. Nice to have you, sir.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So obviously playing for Princeton there, they got a lot of great prospects this season, actually. But for you especially, I mean, you've been able to have a lot of great success. Been all conference a few times over for sure. But let's back up and kind of share those things as we go along. Tell me about where you're from and how you actually got to Princeton.
Yeah, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, originally, and I went to Innsworth High School. So the recruiting process was a little bit weird for me growing up. You know, the SEC kind of dominates everything. I had a bunch of teammates who, they were the quick, fast guys. So that was always kind of in the air with recruiting. And, by my senior year, I sort of felt like I kind of was getting left behind. And, I was really even doubting if I was going to end up playing Division I football. All my other teammates who ended up playing college football had their offers already. And I ended up being sort of a late bloomer. I didn't put on much weight until my senior year of high school. I was always a really good student. And when I met with like a college counselor, they sat me down and they were like, you're going to have to look at, schools to apply to just for school, not football. Like, I know this is what you really, really want, but, be honest with yourself. And that kind of just like motivated me. I was like, well, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to go to the best school I can, and then I'm going to play the best football I can at the same time. And that's sort of how I kind of mapped out wanting to go to Princeton. I played against a guy named John Orr, who ended up being the captain my sophomore year at Princeton. And he was just a phenomenal player. And I was thinking, well, if somebody as good as John can go to Princeton, then that must be great football up there. So I went to camp and really impressed Mike Mendenhall, the area recruiter, and Andrew Warwick, who's now at Rutgers. He was the O-line coach. And they offered me the next day, took a tour of the campus, really fell in love with it. Came up for a game against San Diego. So like first game of the year. And the next morning I sat in Coach Therese' office and he's like, what more do you need? What more do you want to know about Princeton? And I was like, honestly, Coach, like this is everything that I looked for. Like I'm ready to commit right now. And the rest is history. 5 years later, it's been a great experience.
Neat. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, Nashville kid, might have been a little bit of a culture clash. I don't know if that's kind of how you got it. You took it whenever you, got there, to New Jersey, but, hey, it is what it is. So, let's back up just a little bit, just to kind of fill in some of the blanks there. Obviously, going back to your days in high school, I do have in my notes that you did some other sports like lacrosse and basketball. Can you kind of let me know at least some information about some other sports that you've been a part of?
Yeah. So I was a 4-year starter on the lacrosse team. And, depending on where you are in the country, that means different things. Up here in the Northeast, lacrosse is a lot bigger of a deal. I know a bunch of guys on the lacrosse team here who are all Americans, phenomenal athletes. But back home in Tennessee, when I started playing lacrosse in high school, I think there were only like 20 programs in the entire state.
Mm.
It was a tiny sport, and by the time it was my senior year, they were up to like 60. So the game really grew in the 4 years I was there. And so it was really fun to be like a part of that, kind of see it progress, see better and better athletes, better and better players kind of join up and start learning the game. And I really did love lacrosse. It flows really fun. There's a good level of physicality that you get to bring to it too.
Sure.
Basketball wise, I played high school basketball for a couple years with James Wiseman, who was the number 2 overall pick in the draft. He is significantly taller than me and is a significantly better player than I was. So I kind of just I played my senior year kind of thinking like, oh, I'm just going to get to watch this, future NFL or NBA player just go out there and dominate. And he actually, right before the season started, transferred to Memphis East. And I was like, uh-oh, now I'm the tallest guy left on this team, and we're playing a national basketball schedule. So I was going out there against guys like Kofi Coburn, who are, these All-Americans in the NCAA, and I just did not have the size to compete with those guys. I'm a pretty big dude, but man, basketball tall is a different level.
Yeah, I mean, obviously basketball tall is like 6'8", 6'9", stuff like that. I mean, you yourself, maybe about 6'5"-ish. So that's kind of, at least what people are seeing you at. So obviously a guy who really loved the game of lacrosse, but obviously just chose to pursue football. What do you like so much about the game of football that made you decide to put all of your efforts into that sport?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Tennessee and like in the SEC culture, football is sort of a part of your life. You're, just every single day. There's football is just really a one of a kind sport that you don't see anywhere else. It's such an interesting combination between like pure raw intelligence and pure raw physicality. Every single play, there's so much going on between blocking schemes, receiving routes, deception, motions. There's more things than you could possibly think of going on just before the play even happens. And then after the ball snapped, you got some of the most athletic people on the planet just trying to get after each other. So there's really nothing quite like it. And I think that's really why I fell in love with it. And it sort of spoke to me, especially as, somebody who really values like intelligence and strategy and all that stuff. But also on the flip side, nothing better than, 4th and 1. And it's just, you got to line up against the guy across from you.
Gotcha. I mean, yeah, definitely two sets of teams, like just colliding, creating this, utter, barbaric violence, being a part of that. But then also, like you said, there is a lot of a mind game to it as well. I mean, trying to, deceive your opponents and things of that nature. So, again, made your way there to Princeton. Let's talk about Princeton. Just for you as a student, what have you been able to accomplish there as a student?
Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve academically. It's it's a great university for a reason. It's really difficult. But I was worried about that going in. But Kurt Haluba, the captain my freshman year, he told all the freshmen, he goes, it doesn't get easier, but you get a lot better at it. And you just learn to, properly manage your time. You learn to really lock down and study. You learn how to read more effectively. You learn how to write more effectively. And by the end of it, like I'm right now in the midst of finishing up my senior thesis, you plot down what I've written in front of me. My freshman year, I would have been like, well, that's not me. Like, I can't write like that. That's crazy. Like, how could I ever write 80 pages? And, now like I'm researching country music. It kind of goes back to being from Nashville. But, I'm researching something that, I really like learning about and I'm passionate about. So like, it's astonishing really to see the changes over the 5 years.
Wow. So 80 pages of country music. You got to be passionate about it if you're doing that, for sure. So what is your major, by the way?
I'm a history major.
History major. Interesting. So I don't know, hypothetically, so hear me out. If football did not exist, if the NFL or any other pro team didn't exist, where would that lead you, man? Like, do you have any sort of career path that you might end up at?
Well, if the NFL doesn't exist, that's tough because what I want to do post football is be a broadcaster and be in announcing. So that kind of takes away that career path. No, but I think, I have tried to think like, what would I be doing without football? Because, it just, it's 40 hours a week and it's all I think about sometimes. It's kind of weird to think about, but I think I probably would be going to law school. And I think I would have been like a debate kid growing up, that sort of speaks to like argumentative nature, the logic, planning everything's out like that. I've always really enjoyed those things. So probably law school, but I don't even want to think of a world,
No,
without.
no, no. Hey, it's just a hypothetical thing. So I try and ask that to some people whenever it comes up. But it's just as a history major. I mean, all the people that I've known that are history majors, like they never get into anything when it comes to that major. I mean, a very select few will actually go and do other things with it, but like maybe get your teacher's certification or something. But yeah, didn't know if you had like a track there like in mind, but it's all good. It's all good. Um, talk to me about your guys' offense there at Princeton and how you're used, along that offensive line.
Yeah, it's actually changed a little bit in my time here. When I first showed up, one of the like main recruiting pitches that Princeton sold me on was, with the tempo that we play at, being a smaller guy myself during recruiting, it was like, you have a chance to get on the field, even though you're only weighing like 265. Just like learn the offense and be quick, and that'll at least get you, the chance to get on the field. And that's ended up being what happened with me. Um, but it's interesting. My class, the two tackles that came in our class, me and Connor Scaglione, we were both, tall, lanky guys coming out of high school. The first time I met Skaggs, I think he was like 225 on our official visit in the middle of basketball season. And then, this year we were both playing at like 310.
Hmm.
So we've definitely gone from being like the school known for having small guys to having an offensive line that averaged about 305 in weight this year. And I think we've kind of leaned a lot more into the physicality side of the game. We used to be, a lot more speed, wear people down with tempo. But now it's a lot more, we see, we got to get 3 yards here. We're perfectly fine just getting 3 yards in a cloud of the dust. And, at the same time, having guys like Dylan Classy and Andre Osibas out on the edge, I think it added a really new dynamic to the offense this year.
So how does one put on like 40 or 50 pounds coming in as a freshman? Like again, you said like 265-ish coming in. Like how does that work? I mean, how do you deal with that? Do you like eat a dozen eggs a day or something?
Yeah, a lot of it's eating. You kind of just gotta dig in and make it part of the training. I think the assumptions with big guys like, you're so lucky, you just get to eat whatever you want. And it's really not the case. You have to like map out like, okay, I got to eat like 4 chicken breasts in this meal. And, it's just a part of looking at it as food being fuel. Another thing that did help putting on weight was weirdly enough COVID. Having that, long period of time with like uninterrupted training. The Ivy League didn't have a season in 2020, and there was no spring season for us as a conference while the rest of the FCS got to play. So, while we were all really, disappointed that, we didn't get to go out there and have to watch, Saturdays, watch it on TV. I think we all really saw it as an opportunity. Well, this is a time that we really get to hone in a lot of skills that we don't normally get to. We get to really improve our strength. We get to really improve, our understanding of the offense. We get to do deep dives on like scheme and all that stuff. And I think that really showed across the Ivy as a whole in the last 2 years. Guys are a lot bigger. Guys are a lot stronger. Guys are a lot faster now. It's a lot more competitive league. And I think this year was probably top to bottom the most competitive that it's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, Ivy League is no joke. I mean, a lot of times people would just say, "Hey, they're just kind of a pushover," or whatever when it comes to talent. But a lot of good talent coming out of there, going into the league. I know some guys try their best after their time at their Ivy League school to maybe even transfer out to like maybe one of these Power Five schools or something. But you chose to stick it out there and to finish your time there. Um, so, of course, right now, I mean, we're looking towards the pros. I mean, that's kind of at least your mentality right now. That's what you're focusing on, and that's your goal. What do you feel separates you as a prospect? I mean, obviously, are you just another guy? I mean, can you talk to me about maybe some of your better attributes?
Yeah, I think what really separates me as a player is my ability to play every position on the offensive line, both as like a schematic fit, but also, the ability to learn and run an offense as a center, track blitzes, all that stuff. One of the things Coach Sure said to me as a freshman for why I got on the field so early compared to most offensive line. It wasn't just the physical talent of being a player, but it was the ability to be able to track blitzes very naturally. That's like the main piece that really holds young linemen back. It's schematics, or like outside of like the physicality and just physical maturity.
Sure.
Um, it's the ability to see the blitzes, track that, because you're responsible for keeping the quarterback upright. The whole entire offense has got to run through this one guy behind you, and it's your job to make sure that they can do it. So I think that's probably being able to play all five. I played right tackle, started the last 3 years at left tackle. Being able to play center, guard, everything out there. It's a really big advantage for me, knowing that I can do it both physically and mentally.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple clips of you moving around. I mean, definitely very mobile. And so, having the ability to play all the positions, like you said, I mean, certainly helps. May not have like the gargantuan size as some of these other people that are like 6'8" or whatever, but being around 6'5", with an 80-inch wingspan or something of that nature, people will eventually get the measuring tape out and get the officials on all that, but still pretty decent, really across the line. Honestly, I mean, it's not too far off. That's what's needed at every position, but having that physicality, the strength, and also the quickness, to get off the ball and to pull and to hit your spot. So, Henry, I know you've had a lot of great moments during your time there at Princeton. Let's talk about a couple of them, man. Tell me about some of your highlights, some of your best games, and maybe one of your favorite plays of all time.
All right, let me think on this. I think probably my favorite game I've had here was Harvard this year on Friday night on national television. Um, and and I think the reason why it really sticks out to me is because we were going against a really great defensive line. That defensive line, multiple first team All Ivy guys. Truman Jones, who's was a finalist along with my teammate Liam, co-champion, Bushnell Cup, Ivy Defensive Player of the Year. Like legitimately, great defensive Ivy League line. And I think what's so special about that game is, the 5 offensive linemen we had, we went out there and we matched up and we really controlled the game in a way that, was kind of unexpected. A lot of what we heard before was, everything's going to ride on this game on the offensive line. We win the battle up front. We've got the speed on the back end. We will be successful. And sort of stepping up to that challenge against a really good opponent was really, really like impactful and important to us. And, coming out of that game with such a decisive victory, it really just felt different than a lot of wins. It wasn't we just got by. It was like, damn, the offensive line really carried this team.
That's great, man. It's great to hear. I mean, you're speaking there about your opponent, Truman Jones, who I know is on everyone's radar, who's like a really fantastic edge rusher. Do you want to put the attention on your team there? Tell me about some of the guys who have impressed you the most during your time there. Or maybe some guys that are still like remaining that are going to continue that legacy there for Princeton.
Yeah. I think probably the obvious answer is Andre.
Sure.
Yeah, everybody knows about that. And really seeing him develop from just raw athleticism as a freshman, but wasn't quite able to get on the field very much. Still struggle with the finer aspects of the game, but really through just tremendous coaching by our wide receivers coach, Coach Flynn. I think he's just one of the most talented coaches in the country. You look at the production he's put out with every single wide receiver we've had; it's just been like phenomenal. But really teaching like the finer points of the game, Andre kind of developed it into like being a true number one receiver where, he's bigger and faster than everybody, but also he's got the ball skills to go up and catch any contested ball. Dylan Classy is another guy, probably the most reliable player I've ever been with whenever we needed a big play. Man, like you could count on Dylan to just lay out and find the open spot where no one else could get to the football and just somehow make these miraculous catches. I think that he's got a bright future and maybe a little bit underrated, but he's the real deal. Quarterback Blake Strindstrom, his first year as a starter, we've gone through I think 5 straight first year starters, something crazy. But every single year, it's always kind of been like, how's it going to be this year? And they always step up. And I think Blake stepped up in like a tremendous way this year, both with his legs, throwing ability. He's a pretty incredible player. Elsewhere on the offensive line, I think a guy that people are really gonna look at the next year and just be like, whoa, like where'd this kid come from is Jalen Travis. He was our right tackle this year. We'll probably play left tackle, anchor the blind side. He was the backup left tackle last year, and whenever he came in, he did a phenomenal job. Earned the starting role this year. But man, he's got just all the size you could possibly want in the world. But it's crazy to see him just get more and more athletic every single week. He's got he's always been athletic, but his foot speed and his technique has really come along. And I think he's got the potential to be not just like a great Ivy player. I think like all American. See him on Sundays.
Nice. So something to certainly look forward to in the coming years. So nice to hear a little bit about your teammates there. I mean, I think a lot of people know of, the obvious there in, your, stud wide receiver, but nice to also talk about some other people there. And we'll see what happens. So, Henry, I do want to get a chance to meet you off the field a little bit and talk about something about you that is, whatever you feel is interesting, whether that be your hobbies or your interests, any passions, or anything else going on in your life that you want to share. So give us a little something.
Yeah, I think kind of my go-to in interviews has always been about my time tap dancing in high school. That's usually something that catches people off guard.
You said tap dancing?
Yeah. So it sounds crazy, especially somebody as big as me. You're like, what on earth are you doing trying to do that? But it actually translates. I always see the translation between football, offensive line, and tap dancing, because really it's just footwork at the end of the day. It's rhythm, it's balance, it's all the stuff that you want to see in an offensive lineman. In high school, we had an arts requirement, and there was a class called Dance for Athletes. And I took it and I was like, I kind of like this. This is a lot of fun. And then I took Dance for Athletes too, and I was like, I'm pretty good at this whole tap dancing deal. We did like a performance in front of the school, and I was like, I think I like this. Like I'm pretty good at it. And then all the way to my senior year, I was in an honors dance class and designed a routine to Singing in the Rain. That was part of our like big spring dance concert with all the members of like the real dance team, and then there was just me doing a rendition to Singing in the Rain, and it was a lot of fun, and I look back on it really fondly.
That's so funny just to hear, man. Anybody like on your team like try and haze you and like put you on the spot for something like that? Like, does that happen?
No, if
it's gonna happen.
Freshman year, so I'll say this. It's on the internet. I haven't told anybody where. The only person who's been able to successfully track it down is my roommate, Zach.
All right.
He was
We
also
we will get people to track this thing down for sure. So
you know,
be prepared.
he's probably my best friend, and he's the only one who like knew what stones to uncover to find it. But freshman year, when you know you introduced all the freshmen, you're like, okay, you know, tell us where you're from, tell us, you know, yada yada, you know, what's like a fun fact about you. And I was like, oh, my fun fact is I tap dance, and all of them were just like, all right, this kid's lying to us right now. Like, do a little dance for us, and I did a little Shirley Temple thing, and they're all just like, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
My God. So, well, we got this dancing bear who's obviously trying to impress everybody with his footwork uh, as an offensive lineman. Uh, so let's kind of wrap it up here. You know, and then you got some scouts that are wondering about you, man. I mean, some of them may like you at center or guard or tackle. But why don't you just take one last opportunity to give them your pitch as to you know, what would make you such a good addition to their franchise. So go ahead and close us out with that.
Yeah, I think, you know, as I've talked about before, versatility is, you know, my biggest thing. I can, you know, do anything anything and everything you ask me to, uh, whether that be being um, whether that be, you know, being a center, or whether that be, you know, taking on a speed rusher on the edge. I think I've got the foot speed to be a tackle, and I think I've got, you know, the length and physicality to be a center. I think I can run an offense very well. But you know, more than that, speaking on intangibles, reliability. You know, you don't gain 50 pounds in college just by kind of slacking off. I think, you know, the proof is there, knowing where I came from strength wise in high school. You know, barely being able to bench 275 to, you know, benching over 420 pounds now, squatting over, you know, 560 pounds, you know, not being able to squat 315 when I left high school. You know, you don't get there without putting in the work. Um, and, you know, really trusting the process and having that buy-in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you get a guy who is versatile, who has the raw physicality, who has the mental aspect, understanding the game, is able to make those checks and adjust to all these you know, fantastic, you know, pass rushers in the Ivy League, and really hold your own against you know, some of the better guys who are legitimate draft prospects. So, and of course that would you know, lead toward you also being under that you know, banner, as well as like a guy who I feel is a legitimate prospect at the next level that everyone really needs to know. So Henry, do wish you best of luck in this process. I know sometimes it could be crazy, but I know you have a good head on your shoulders and a good even keel to get you through this time. All right.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Sure, man. Once again, we got with us Henry Byrd. He's an offensive lineman out of Princeton. Definitely check him out.
Yeah,